And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Nicole Bertrand from Montreal, Canada. She's a former mathematics teacher who is now a bishop guide within the International Raelian Movement. Nicole, thanks for joining me and welcome.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me, Jeff.
So for people who are learning about the Raelian Movement for the first time today, what is it and how did you get involved?
The Raelian Movement is a planetary organization that started in 1973. A young journalist in France was telepathically guided to go in a remote section of his town in the volcano area on December 13, 1973. And in front of him came a UFO. A human being came out of it and talked to him and asked him to take notes of revelations that have to be shared with the whole humanity. That's how it started. So this young journalist, his name was Claude Vorillon, and the extraterrestrial who spoke to him said, from now on, you will be called Rael, which means the light of Elohim. So what is Elohim? Elohim is mistranslated in most Bibles by the word God, singular. But actually, it's a plural Hebrew name for and means those who came from the sky. This is the name of our creators, and they explained to Rael that thanks to their science and the mastering of engineering genetic, they were able to create all forms of life on Earth. We attributed that to God, but now they say we were not gods, but we were mystified by the people who at that time could not understand creation in laboratories. So that's okay. Now we clarify God, it's Elohim. They also said to Rael that through time, to the history of humanity, they sent many prophets, messengers, like Moses, Buddha, Jesus, many, about 40 prophets. And they said to Rael, you are our last prophet. Because to you, we will explain everything that the other prophets could not explain because humanity was not ready to understand. Humanity needed a certain level of science to understand scientific creation by people coming from another planet. So, in 1945, August 6th, Hiroshima was destroyed by atomic bomb. And for the Elohim, this was a signal that our humanity has enough science to understand their message, but unfortunately also enough science to risk to destroy their creation on Earth. So that's when they decided to prepare their last messenger for the revelation. Most people know about the time of apocalypse, which sounds like the end of the world, but the real meaning of apocalypse is revelation. So we have been in that era of our human history since August 6, 1945. They said to Rael, your mission is, first of all, to write what I'm going to tell you, explain and demystify all religions, and spread that information all over the planet. And the second part of your mission is to ask people who want to welcome us back on Earth as your creators to build an embassy, just one embassy for extraterrestrial so that they can come back among us shortly, hopefully, to share their science. And for that, there are a few conditions, but basically that's the goal of the Raelian movement. Those are all people from all over the planet. We all volunteer, nobody is paid. We put some of our spare time to help Rael in his mission, sharing information like I'm doing now.
Did Rael ever discover where these aliens were from? I mean, what planet? And also, did he ever describe what the UFO looked like?
Actually, I will answer the second question. He described very clearly in his book, which is actually Intelligent Design, that you can have download for free on rael.org. He describes and made a drawing of the UFO. It's like a metallic flattened bell, and it travels very fast, of course. It has no noise. It can make zigzag trajectories, and it seems to lift like no gravity at all, like an helicopter, you would say. So that's the description he gives, and more details in the book. Now, the other question, where are they from? Of course, he asked, are you from? So where are you from? The answer was from very far away. We have a different solar system, but we are in the same galaxy. So they are not coming from Mars, Jupiter, or any planet around our own sun, but they live in the same galaxy as we do. So they are Milky Way neighbors.
They didn't tell him which star system they're from, did they?
No, that information was not given to him 50 years ago.
Now, didn't they take him to their planet at one time?
Yes. In 1975, after 2 years where Rael was gathering the information, giving lectures, meeting with people who wanted to help him, they came back on October 7, 1975. Again with the same engine, again with the same extraterrestrial man. And that time, they took him for 24 hours to the planet of the Eternal. They traveled so fast that in the same book, Intelligent Design, Rael describes it. The time it took to get there, he said he had like a sensation of like crystal ice through all his body, and then they landed. So it's like almost instantly. That's the way they travel. So we can have a few theories on that, but I'm trying to quote the exact words of Rael. So they travel very fast. We cannot even imagine what they do. They are 25,000 years in advance with their science and technology. They say that they can move entire solar system. So they go in the galaxy and they take the moon, the sun, the planets, and they can move an entire solar system, which we cannot even imagine. So knowing that they have that technical advance, they were able to take him instantly, almost instantly, to the planet of the Eternal. So he spent 24 hours there, and he saw magnificent things, beautiful nature. But the most, I would say, important events of that visit are the fact that he was cloned. We hear about cloning, right? So yes. It's a scientific technique, and he witnessed the cloning of himself in one of those big machines, and he shook hands with a copy of himself.
I had a guest once from China, literally, and we had a translator, And he also claims that he was taken to another planet, which he called Planet Goka, I think. But he said on that planet, the commerce was basically cloning people and people from all over the galaxy. And not only could they clone people, but they could also download their memories. So it's like you're literally talking to yourself. Did they download Rael's memories as well?
His body was there, and he said, the extraterrestrial told him, this new yourself has everything that is already in your head, except there is a difference. This new one knows that he will not survive because they have a kind of rule that not two copies of the same person can live at the same time. He said, you, Rael, from Earth, you know you're going to go back to your planet, though this one knows that it will be destroyed, but it's not a problem because he knows it's just a copy of you. So
Wow.
that clone also had all the memory, all the knowledge that Rael himself had. And that's the secret of eternity. That's why it's so important. In my background, the Catholic background, the biggest event of our religion is the resurrection of Jesus. And this is a big mystery. The Elohim explained to Rael that Jesus was recreated scientifically through their advanced technique of cloning. So there goes the mystery of the resurrection. They can do it on their planet. And that's how they took him, the resurrected Jesus, and put him back on earth so that he could be shown to his apostles so that they could go on with the mission that they were given.
So that's the secret of eternity is cloning?
Yes.
So are you saying that these advanced aliens just clone themselves before they die, so when they die, their clone lives on?
Not all of them. I have to make a nuance. They have a planet where there is about 7 or 8 billion people, like us. They have, first of all, longevity 10 times ours. So they live in average 750 to 1,000 years. During that time, they try to deserve eternity. They have longevity already, but they try to deserve eternity through the cloning that we just talked about. And to deserve that, they have to make some discoveries, some inventions. They have to deserve it by putting all their talent to the service of their own humanity. And then when they reach the age of close to 1,000 years, or when their body is close to give up, then there is an accounting of kind of bilan of what they did during their life. And the question is asked to a council, does that person deserve eternity through cloning? So those who deserve eternity, yes, they go through this advanced cloning. I say advanced because on our planet, what we do at the moment with cloning is the first step. It's like an empty copy of the person. It's like a twin. Like if I have a clone of myself, it will be a little girl that will look like me when I was a little girl, but this person, this new little girl, will not know anything that I know. So my knowledge, my personality, my consciousness cannot now be transferred to a new body called Nicole Bertrand or a different name. You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. Same genetic code, but no background. Their advanced technique can put all the knowledge and the experience and the consciousness of the dying people into the new body.
Now, isn't that one of the controversies about the Raelian movement is cloning? Because many people in the world see cloning human beings as something that's completely unethical.
that's a shocking science novelty. And I like to compare it with the first tube baby, Louis Brown. For a long time, people had to conceive the traditional way by men and women being together. Then some fertility doctors decided to do in vitro fertilization, and they did it, and they did it, and they did it privately, secretly, until at one point, the parents of Louis Brown was ready to say, I am now ready to have it public. Nobody is sure that she is the first one about it. Because it's a big thing to announce to the world that you had a baby, but it was conceived in a laboratory. And then to go public with that, with all what comes with it, and the paparazzi and all the controversy. I think the parallel is valid with the cloning of a human being. At this moment, cloning is illegal in most of the countries for the same reasons. Why is it so controversial? But my answer is that most people who believe that God gives life, when they see scientists giving life, they say, oh, those scientists are dangerous because they play God, right? And most people, well, less and less people are hanging on to the concept of God the way it was like 100 years ago or even 50 years ago. Science is there, and what was reserved to God gradually is kind of taken care of by human beings using their knowledge, their science, to do some things that God only was able to do at the beginning. So this cloning is shaking the concept of God. And I'm sure this is a big, big, big part of the controversy because the Raelian movement supports the cloning. I'm not the person who does cloning, but we support the concept of cloning because eventually, if we deserve eternity, it will be through that technique.
Is the movement able to demonstrate that Rael's message is genuine and not just a reinterpretation of existing science fiction concepts?
Can we prove it? Well, actually, that's one question that Rael asked his guide, extraterrestrial guide, after receiving the message. We call it the message from the Elohim. After receiving the message in 1973, he was told, go and tell people what I told you. And he said, well, won't you give me a proof so that I can tell them that I'm not lying or just a lunatic or, a crazy drunk or a stone guy? And the answer he received, he said, at the time of Jesus, people could not understand what I'm explaining to you now. I think we can agree on that. They didn't know about traveling through space. They didn't know about DNA and genetic engineering laboratories. They couldn't even imagine what we understand now. So at the time of Jesus, they had to do miracles, right? They had to assist Jesus technically, discreetly, with their technology, doing miracles so that people would believe that Jesus is the new prophet. So they told Rael, your predecessor Jesus needed miracles so that people can believe. He said, now you are in the age where you can understand. We're not asking people to believe what you're going to tell them. They can understand by themselves. If they want to research and read, they can understand. They have everything now on earth to be able to understand what we did when we started creating life on this planet. The traces are there. The book is written. What people have to do is read it and figure out, does it make sense? And you're asking me previously what made me become a Raelian. That's my experience. I read what I wrote in 1977, and I said to myself, of course, it's obvious. Now it makes sense. All the questions I had when I was young, as a Christian Catholic little girl who learned all my catechism and all of my religious things perfectly, I knew it, but I did not understand it. And I was asking questions, and I was always told that's a mystery. And big theologians studied for years and years and years, and they still don't understand it. So I was basically asked not to ask questions. So I left it alone. But I still have my question. And then I read the book written by Rael. Amazingly, in French, the books were written in French first. And the title in French is The Book That Tells the Truth. So I said to myself, whoa, who dares saying I'm telling you the truth? So I challenged it and I read it and I said to myself, it makes sense. Now I understand what my parents, my teachers, my priests, my nuns could not explain. They could not explain it. This is like the key, not to reinterpret the Bible, the Old Testament or the New Testament. I don't call it reinterpret. I call it, this is a revelation to demystify all what is impossible to understand in the Old Testament and in the New Testament. I would say that intelligent design is the last testament. It's the one who explained everything in the previous ones. So the mystery of God, of angels, the miracles, everything is explained through the science and the love of our creators, the Elohim.
Was the transition from being a Catholic to a Raelian difficult for you?
The transition, I would say in my teens, I took my distance from everything that I had to memorize about the religion. I was still going to church when my parents watched me, but when I had a chance, I would skip the Sunday Mass. So I took my distance as a teenager. Then I started teaching and I was not going to church, but this was my background. And in 1977, as I was a teacher, a fellow teacher gave me the books from Rael, and I read it. And to me, in my own brain, it was not difficult. It was so obvious. It was instantly, as I said earlier, of course, now it makes sense. Maybe as a mathematics teacher, I needed something rational. I don't know, but it made sense. Yeah, you don't need to be a mathematics teacher to understand what's written there. It's very simple. Now, people accepting me as a Raelian in a Catholic background, they had a problem with that. I was rejected, I was mocked, but I didn't care. Because to me, being myself was more important than pretending being someone else. They don't respect my philosophy. That's their problem, you know. I made new friends. Some of them didn't want to talk to me, but if a friend cannot like you for who you are, is it a real friend? I was asking myself. And I made new friends who respect me. Was it difficult? It was not always easy, but I realized in my education, I was not trained with the human rights. It was not part of what we studied at school. Everybody had to be the same. So the respect of differences was not in our background. We were the ones who were right, and the other ones were wrong. And when I became a Raelian, I discovered the human rights at that time. And I said, okay, the human rights have been written to protect minorities, not majorities. Majorities don't need human rights. They have the number on their side, right? So human rights are there to protect those who are in a smaller number and are different than the majority. Being from a different religion, I knew the human rights were created to support those who wanted to be respected as being different. So that part of, I was proud to discover the human rights. And I think it should be taught at least in high school, where people can understand that differences come from the Elohim. You don't choose to have a white skin or a dark skin or a yellowish skin. You don't choose where you're born. You don't choose your parents. You don't choose your genetic heritage, but you were born with it. And every human being is equal. It's that simple. So not just tolerate differences. In the Raelian movement, we are taught to love and cultivate our differences. Our teacher, our guide, spiritual guide Rael, tells us, be as different as you can. Express your genetic code. So it's really in line with the human rights.
Yesterday, I literally spoke to a woman who said that the ETs are going to be establishing an embassy here. And I believe she said it was going to be done by 2030. Are you aware of the Raelian movements or the Elohim's timeline for when they're going to establish the embassy?
The Elohim told the Rael that they would come back in the embassy between the year 2025 and 2035. So the person you refer to, I don't know where the information comes from, but I can tell you it's written in the Intelligent Design book that the Elohim would like to come back at that time. So yes, that's our goal, to build that embassy. And we're very close. We have been gathering our strength, our energy, some funds also, to prepare the construction of that embassy. We have a team of Raelians who are dedicated to the project of the embassy, making contact with presidents, leaders of different countries, having communications, very important commitments from some countries that are interested in establishing the embassy of the Elohim on their territory. So for us, it's not just a dream anymore. It's concrete. People are taking a plane to meet with country's leader to negotiate. What are you going to do? And what are we going to do? Which part is yours? Which part is ours? So it's coming. And that's why it's so important that humanity is prepared to welcome those extraterrestrials. They put some conditions. The first condition is, if we want to welcome them, they won't impose themselves. If we recognize that they are, let's say, the gods of our ancestors demystified, if we recognize that they are human beings like us who have 25,000 years of advance on us, but who would like to share some of their technical and philosophical advance with us when they will come in an embassy, if we make peace on earth. That's our part of the job, which is a lot of work. Information, yes, people can be informed that the Elohim want to come back, but now we have to make peace. And I think that the Raelian message, to my point of view, is solving two big reasons why we have wars on earth. The first one being racial wars. When we understand, reading the message of the Elohim, that they created different races on earth, like they had on their own planet. So whatever your race, you were created by the same Elohim. So we come from the same source. There is just a tiny little part of our genetic code that is different. So why fight because of the color of our skin? Why enslave Black people because they have a different color of skin? That doesn't make sense when you acknowledge that we all come from the same creators from space. The second reason, there are religious wars. A lot of killing is done in the name of God, right? When you understand that all the prophets were sent to earth by the Elohim, they all talk about something in the sky. Yahweh is Yahweh. You can change the name, but Yahweh is still Yahweh. Whatever the tradition, Yahweh still is the oldest immortal on their planet. So he was assimilated to a kind of God, which we can understand with the primitive mind that there was no way to think that he was a real human being. But in any case, all the prophets came at a different time on earth from the same place. And they all went back to the same place. And in the embassy that we want to build, all the prophets will come with Yahweh. So those who believe that Jesus is alive, they can also believe that Buddha is alive, thanks to cloning. They were all resurrected scientifically, and they are living on the planet of the Eternals, and they are just waiting for us to build the embassy and fulfill that promise that we will come back at the end of time. Remember that kind of, at one point, they will come back. So people who want to see Jesus alive, those who really want to see him alive, they have to accept that Buddha will be next to him, and Joseph Smith, and Moses, and all of the other ones, because they all come from the same source. So why do we fight about religions? So that's one part of the message of the Elohim that also touched me very deeply, because I could not understand why people made war, racial war and religious war. Maybe it's just in my mind, but this is, to me, the connection between the past that can pacify the planet, all humanity, around the source of all those races and the source of all those prophets, which is the same.
The Raelian movement has faced labels like cult or UFO religion. What steps has the movement taken to counter those perceptions?
We call ourselves an atheist religion. Atheist because we don't believe in God. We believe that the Elohim are human beings, scientists, artists who came to create life. So we are atheists, but we are a religion. A religion means religare, it comes from Latin. It means something that assembles people around a mission. As I described it, we have a mission to demystify the Old Testament, the New Testament, and the books of all other religions through the light of the message of the Elohim given to Rael. So we are a religion, and our goal is to welcome the creators on earth. So we fit in the definition of a religion. Like the Buddhists, we don't have a God. But we also have a mission to welcome those who were mistaken for gods. Now, for people who look at a new minority, they call it a cult. The definition of a cult is someone is a group that is not in the mainstream. Some people who think out of the box. If this is the definition that you give to the word cult, then I guess we are different. We see the Bible, we see the Old Testament, the Torah, the New Testament with a new angle, a demystified angle. Does it make us a cult? Maybe, if it's your definition. Now, if you think that a cult is a place where people lose their freedom, we're not a cult. Because freedom, as I mentioned, your human rights, we have the freedom to become Raelians and to cease to be a Raelian whenever we want. So there is no pressure on that. Everybody is a volunteer. I was a teacher, and on my free time, I would, instead of bowling, I would help Rael in his mission, which is my choice and has to be respected. We have no salary for doing what we do. We do it out of love for our creators because we want to help their last messenger. We live all over the planet. This is my apartment and my beautiful plant. I live by myself. I used to have a partner. He was Jewish. And he was very respectful of my religion, as well as I respected his religion. It's my freedom. It was his freedom to be who he wanted to be. So those who see a dangerous cult who is going to commit suicide, like the Jones and all those ugly stories, they are wrong. If this is their definition of a cult, then we are not a cult.
You said that you volunteered to participate in the Raelian movement, right? But there have been some allegations of financial exploitations or high membership fees that have surfaced over the years. Is there any truth to that?
No. So, but you're asking the right person, because as a volunteer, what I do now, I did a lot of things in the Raelian movement in 45 years. But at this moment, I'm the one taking care of the money in Canada. So what people are suggested if they want to contribute financially, we took a guideline from the Catholic Church, because we are, most of us in Canada, from a Catholic background, and my parents were paying the dime, 1/10 of their income to the church. So we said, okay, if it's good for the Catholic, why is it not good for the Raelians? So we took that as a guideline, and we suggested to Raelians, if we want to build an embassy, here is what we suggest. You send, if you make whatever the amount of money you have available, you take 1/10 of it and you send to the Canadian Raelian Movement, and the Canadian Raelian Movement will send most of it to the International Raelian Movement for the embassy, and keep a small portion to develop and spread the message and pay for expenses in Canada. It was 3/10 and 7/10. 3 for the Canada and 7 to build the embassy and develop new countries where it takes a lot of money to start and finding people. Now, this is a guideline, and as the same thing as in Catholic Church, there is no control. There's nobody who comes to check my income and to calculate what I should give. I give what I want and if I want, when I want it. And it's the same for everyone on the planet. We just have a guideline, a suggestion. If you really want to help to build an embassy, yes, it will take money. So that's what we did, and that's what we do. And I'm in charge now of the money in Canada. And there is no forced contribution. We have a minimum $300 a year to say that you're a member of the International Raelian Movement. But if you want to be a Raelian and not pay a dime, you are a Raelian anyways. It doesn't change anything. But if you say, I want to help Rael, then there's a little commitment financially, $300 a year. And I can tell you that people are free to give it or not. And there's no repercussion if they don't at all. So I don't see any financial exploitation in that. It's just rumors, and it's false.
The symbol for the Raelian movement is a swastika intertwined with the Star of David. And I think it sparked some significant backlash, due to using those symbols together. Why do they still use it?
Well, you're right. This symbol, I will just show it so that people know what we're talking about. This is the symbol of infinity. This is the most ancient symbol on our planet. Unfortunately, in America, the swastika has been used or known by people in connection with the Nazi. But if you live in Asia, the swastika is a very peaceful symbol. And I traveled to Japan recently. On the map of Tokyo, you have swastikas everywhere where there is a temple. And this is a symbol of spirituality. So when our horizons are limited, our perception of the swastika is Nazi. When you travel a little bit, it becomes a peace symbol. Now, if you go even further in the past, as I said, this is the most ancient symbol on Earth, and it was brought to this planet by the Elohim themselves. You can find it on very ancient textbook, and we have also a website called Pro Swastika, where we have the swastika from all the continents. So wherever you come from, even in Israel, the swastika is there, on synagogues. Now, why is it in the Star of David? Well, the Star of David actually is the two triangles, means the infinity through space. The infinitely large is the triangle pointing up. And the other one is the infinitely small. It means that we are in the center, but if we look out, the galaxies are only parts of something bigger and bigger and bigger, infinitely. And if we look at one cell with a microscope, we see the cell and we see the particles of the cell, and then we go into the molecules and the atoms and the particles of the atoms. And deep, 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 there is no limit. And there are galaxies, infinitely small galaxies there with planets, with people living on those planets. Which means that on the tip of our finger, there are some words infinitely small that are alive. That's the symbol of infinity in space. The swastika itself means the infinity in time. Very often people are asking, when did it start? When did the infinite universe start? The answer is in the question. It's infinite. It was always there. From nothing, you get nothing. The infinity of time means there is no beginning. There is no end to the universe. Imagine trying to put all the galaxies, make all the galaxies disappear instantly, like by magic. Where would all that matter go? Somewhere else. So it's not finished. There's something else. So that's the symbol of infinity. We understand that culturally, it might shock some people who have been hurt by the Nazi symbol, and we have a lot of compassion and sympathy for them. But we ask that they open their mind and go further back in our culture to see that this symbol of peace from India was misused by a criminal in Europe. And then they can make peace with the swastika being, I show it again, look, there is just one line. It's entangled. The infinity of time cannot be separated from the infinity of space. So for us, it's the symbol that the extraterrestrial who met with Rael, he had that symbol on his suit, and the same symbol was on the UFO. And it will be on the embassy that we want to build soon. So that's why it's important that people don't panic when they will see spaceship with the swastika. It's important that they start knowing that it's the symbol of our creators, and that they don't go in a mode panic, and the panic most often brings violence. So we want to educate people on that matter too.
The Raelians believe that we were created by the Elohim. And you are also saying that the Raelians are atheist. But who created the Elohim? And who created all the universe?
Okay, very good question. They are all good, by the way. The Elohim, when they came on Earth 25,000 years ago, they didn't know where they came from. They were advanced scientists. They created plants, animals, human beings, thinking that they were the first to do it. And then after humankind was created here, they found out that they had been created by another humanity previously. So they said, whoa, we're not the first. We just did on Earth what was done on our planet before. And they said, the humanity that we created on Earth, we expect them to take the torch and go into another planet eventually, if they are peaceful, and create life themselves, create a new humanity, for which they will become Elohim also, and so on. Now, they also said that they created our humanity slightly superior to theirs. They say that there's one part of our brain that can work better than theirs, related to the memory. And this is a kind of progression in the quality of humanity. And there's a possibility that when we know very well how we have been made, that we will also create our children on another planet, slightly superior to us. So there is a kind of improvement of humanities through generations and through space. That's the creation. How they explain there has always been humans and there will always be human. They themselves, our Elohim, let's say our creators, created 3 humanities. Ours plus 2 others on other planets. So at this time, there are at least 4 humanities. The Elohim, 25,000 years advance on us, and 2 others who are closer to our level of science, but some may have some advance also on us. Visiting our space, possibly also. Another part of your question was, who created the universe, right? Well, the universe was not created. It's infinite. It's hard to understand because we have been trained to think that the Big Bang was the beginning of, right? There might have been a cosmic event in the past that was called the Big Bang and the beginning of something. I cannot tell. But it's not the beginning of the universe. The universe is infinite. And how can you have a beginning to infinity? That's the right question, actually. There can't be, in my view. It's a different way of asking the questions. That's why the symbol of infinity is so important, because it brings back the right question to what we want to understand with our background at this moment of our evolution on Earth.
What does the Raelian movement say about the afterlife? You know, what happens to us when we die? Do we reincarnate or something else?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Existential question, right? To understand that, we have to understand life. Life starts with DNA. Do we agree on that? The
Sure.
life of an apple starts with the DNA of the seed of the apple. The same with the trees, the same with the fish, same with humans. It takes 2 seeds to make a full seed. So our life, a new life starts in human beings. A new life starts when there is a conception, the meeting of the 2 half genetic codes. That's where the start of new life assembles to give a human being like us. So that's the beginning of life, is matters being assembled following a genetic code. The genetic code is the plan. Like the architect needs a plan to build a house or a boat, or the plan is the genetic code. When death comes, that matter starts not assembling properly, disassembles, if it's a word in English, I don't know, deconstructs itself, and goes back to dust, where it started. You remember the sentence, from dust to dust? So we come from dust, our parents get together, there is a genetic code, our mother eats from dust, the carrots, the apples, the whatever, and we are built from dust, and eventually we go back to dust. Now, people ask, what happens with the soul, right? That's the question that we were told in the Catholic religion, that our soul would survive. The Elohim explained, Rael, and I think it makes sense, that the soul is our genetic code. That's the plan of the human being. For Raelians, we have a ceremony after death to preserve our genetic code for eventual recreation scientifically by our scientists on Earth. So we leave a little part of our body that is frozen, and because we know that in each of our cells, our genetic code is there. Our soul is in each of our cells. So from one cell, people now from one cell can do cloning, right? They use the cell. What part of the cell do they use to clone? The nucleus. What part in the nucleus? The genetic code, the chromosomes. So this is the same idea for human being who wants to deserve a new life. Well, just have your genetic code preserved. So that's our death ritual in the Raelian movement. So is it reincarnations? It's reincarnation coming back in a new life. I'm not an expert in the Oriental traditions where they talk about reincarnation, but it's I would describe it as a life after our death. Maybe in their tradition, in their mythology, the Elohim also taught to their prophets that there was a possibility to live after death, thanks to the soul, thanks to the genetic code. But how people can explain that, let's say 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years ago, it became something mystical like the soul. That's why this message from the Elohim is there to demystify what was misunderstood in the past, because the science couldn't permit explanations.
What about our conscious awareness? Because many people believe that our consciousness is not created by our body.
They have the right to believe it, and it's very hard to describe consciousness. We are one. That's my starting point on that. We are one. At this moment, I'm here, my assembled cells vibrate thanks to my genetic code. And what emanates from me, beside my words, is vibrations, because everything is vibration. So I vibrate something that you perceive through my words, yes, but through something else. And I have no control on how far my vibrations vibrate. Some people are very sensitive to other people's vibration. They like antennas, they have good antennas, and they perceive the vibrations coming from the outside. But their way of explaining it is that they are connected with something external to them. That concept I can understand, and we use the word telepathy for that, which is with quantum mechanic knowledge now, the most recent, I believe, which explains that when an atom vibrates in one part of the universe, it can be perceived on the other side of the planet and further. So that's the beginning of our understanding of telepathy and understanding forces or influences coming from outside. So people who consider themselves as medium, there are some people who have a more, I would say, a more acute sense of telepathy than others, average people. And sometimes they don't know what comes from them and what comes from the outside. This is like a conflict, and they try to understand what's going on. and they try to put words on it. It's very often etherical and spiritual because it's above our material and explanations. So that's why it's a little vague and confused. But I'm very hopeful that the new discoveries in science will confirm telepathy, will confirm the energies flowing in our body through what the acupuncture medicine can regulate. No, it has existed for thousands of years that Chinese doctors were using needles to regulate the energy flowing in the body. And just now, some scientists start seeing that there is really something happening there. This is our science is very young, and those questions are very legitimate. So that's why in the book of Rael's book, Intelligent Design, there is a little paragraph for people who consider themselves as medium. They are asked to contact Rael so that he can help them balance their talent, their skill, so that they can be helpful for humanity.
I have interviewed many, many near-death experiencers. They've been out of their bodies. They've seen their bodies on the operation tables. They've encountered other beings on the other side before they come back. And I think even science now is starting to validate that this phenomena is real. With that information that I've given to you, how does that fit within the Raelian movement?
The explanation that was given at one point by Rael is that when you're close to death, your body secretes a very specific hormone, very powerful, that creates a feeling of beatitude, blessing, that you have no weight, that everything is brilliant. Did the Elohim put in our body this special hormone that would be triggered to facilitate death? That's a theory. I'm not sure that I describe it precisely enough to explain this feeling of being somewhere else, being light, being outside of your body, meeting with people that could come from what you imagined when you were young, when you would come to heaven. What part of your imagination, what do you imagine? Who do you imagine you will meet when you die? If you have the images in your brain already of what God looks like, of what paradise is when you die, all that could be part of what is triggered when this death hormone is in your body. Which part is due to that imagination and the combination with the hormone? That's the only two parts that I can supply as explanations. And that makes sense to me. I was hit by a car and I had a blast. It was a blessing until I woke up in the hospital. But I had fun. It was beautiful. And it was really a strong, it's like, I don't take Doge, so I cannot say like a trip of whatever because I don't use any. But it was certainly different from my usual endorphins. I'm high in life. I'm a happy person, but there was a very big high at that time.
Right. And I think you're speaking of DMT that's released by the brain. And I can understand what you mean by people having these pleasurable moments. But there are some people that are actually claimed to have exited their bodies and can describe things that there's no way they would have known that they were there, like shoes on top of the roof of the hospital, or, seeing things on Earth that are happening that when they weren't physically there.
Is it the oneness that becomes part of them when they are in that state and they perceive stuff that they wouldn't normally perceive when they are driving their car to go to the market? Or I cannot explain that. I don't have an answer coming from me or coming from the teaching that I receive from Rael. It's open in the air for now.
Well, if people want to learn more about the Raelian movement, what is the website that they visit?
It's very easy. It's 4 letters, RAEL.org, Rael.org. That website is in so many languages, and they always add new translations. So you choose your language, and you can download for free The Intelligent Design. This is the main book. And then there are others that are specialized on the political or sexuality or other domains of life. But everything is free for your information, so that when the Elohim will come, you will say, welcome. You can also see events in your country, like we have Happiness Academy. If you want to travel to another country, do some religious tourism, you can go to Japan, you can go to Australia. You just look at the other continent and you can go for one of their Happiness Academy there, or in your own country. If you want to meet people close to where you live, you can find it also on the same website. This is the main website that will take you to the national website of your country.
If people have questions, is there a contact form on the website where they can ask?
Yes, on the same website, when you select your country, there you can ask questions and someone will be in touch with you to help you understand more and welcome you to their gatherings wherever they are.
The word Rael appears to me to be half the word of Israel. Is there a connection between the two?
Yes. As I said previously, Rael means Ra is light, El for Elohim. So Rael is the messenger of the Elohim, our creators. Is means the country, the place, geographic. So Israel is in the plan of the Elohim. Israel was the land where the light of the Elohim would shine. Their wish for the embassy, initially 50 years ago, was that this embassy would be built close to Jerusalem. It has been asked to the state of Israel 7 times, and it has been refused by Israel 7 times. Subsequently, the Elohim said to Rael, since our preference is not yet met by the people of Israel, open the door to every country of the planet to host our embassy. And that's what has been done with the person responsible for that specific aspect of our religious group. So it could be in Canada, it could be in USA, it could be in the Caribbean, it could be in South America and Africa. Now the whole planet could host the embassy. When one country will say, okay, we're ready, Israel will be asked for the last time, last chance. If they refuse, then it will be in the country who is ready to do it. Now, at this time, Rael made many statements to the people of Israel basically, they are not fulfilling the reason why they exist, which was to prepare the return of the Elohim in Jerusalem in our time. 1948, that's when they started coming back to prepare, their mission was to prepare the return of their prophet Moses and the other prophets of their religion, but they don't do anything related to that. So the protection of the Elohim to the state of Israel was lifted. They are on their own. Politically, we don't know what will happen, but we certainly, Raelians, don't identify ourselves with what the government of Israel is doing in Palestine. It's the contrary. Rael recently said that he would love to have the embassy of the Elohim built in Palestine. So this is a very strong political and religious stand that he took recently. We don't know how it will turn, but this is the wish of the Elohim. And he also asked to those who truly believe in the Elohim and in the teaching of Moses, which says you should not kill and you should not steal, to leave the land of Israel. So it's up to them to go somewhere else, because there was a warning. From now on, their faith is very fragile, as we see. And the fate of the whole planet, because it's not just a local problem. It could be the apocalypse with the destruction of humanity.
It's my understanding that Rael lives in Japan. If that's
true.
Does he live there because of religious persecution?
No, actually, Rael, as a prophet, his mission was to spread the message all over the planet. So he first was in France, so he spread it in Europe. Then from France to Canada, actually the French part of Canada, where I'm from, Quebec. We speak French, so for him it was a transition to come to Quebec. And we are in a continent, most English, so from French it went to English. So he lived in Quebec for many years. Then he lived in Las Vegas for many years. And then he went to Japan, because this is another part of the planet where he was welcome. And he likes being there. There is a very interesting mythology in the Shintoist religion there, where there are many gods, and they talk about their ancestors coming from the star people. And Rael recently confirmed that one of their goddess, Amaterasu, was also a daughter of Yahweh.
Nicole, before we finish up, can you leave us with a last positive message?
My last positive message is peace and love. Because no matter what our belief is, one God, many gods, no God, in any case, we all have something in common. We are human beings with life in us. Let's feel our oneness. Let's be peaceful with ourselves, which will bring peace around us, and hopefully it will reach the whole planet. Because if there is no peace, the Elohim will not return, and this will be the end of all of us. So whatever we think is too small to help, let's do it. Even 1 minute for peace, that's what we do every day. Rael teaches us 1 minute for peace. Just stop for 1 minute. Make peace inside of yourself. And by doing so, you project, you emanate from you vibrations of peace and love around you, and it reaches out to other people who might have difficulty being in peace with themselves. And it's like the domino effect. It can go around the planet instantly. Our brain is much more powerful than we think, and let's use it with all the love that we have.
Nicole, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
My pleasure, Jeff. Thank you to you and your audience.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.